All right. Okay. All right. Well, thanks again to everyone for joining us tonight. This is John from the Roselle Public Library, and it's my great privilege to introduce for the first time to our patrons, Julie Gentile, who's a yoga instructor from our neighboring town of Bloomingdale. And we're so pleased that she can be with us. So thanks so much, Julie. You take it away.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome, and hello everyone. I'm Julie Gentile, and welcome to Yoga and Self-Care to help you stay calm in chaos. That is a lot, right? Well, we've been handling a lot over the last year plus, and I'm so excited you're here with me to talk about one of my favorite topics, self-care. And we've had to ride this wave of change, and we're still riding this wave of change and adapting to so many new things over this last year plus. And because of this, the time for self-care is now. The time for self-care was always, but especially now. And I just invite you to grab some water. I have my water bottle right here. So grab some water, find a comfortable seat, and we'll get started. And so I want to start off just by sharing a little bit about me and why self-care is so important to me and how it has really changed my life, and also how it helps me stay calm in chaos. And so I'm a full-time working mom of little ones during a modern day pandemic. And at this point, a screen follows me everywhere I go. So any room I turn to, there's a screen. And so there's a lot of just stimulation from the screens and the technology, which I'm sure many of you can relate to. And I'm also the author of 2 award-winning books, 108 Yoga and Self-Care Practices for Busy Mamas, which was my first book published in 2019, and How to Stay Calm in Chaos, an Everyday Self-Care Guide, which was written and published during the pandemic. And so I've been teaching yoga since 2011, and I'm also the creator of Stand Up for Your Self-Care, which is a blog and also the YouTube channel, and a self-care speaker. And my articles have been published in multiple publications on several websites, including Chicago Parents Magazine, Natural Awakenings, and Mantra Wellness. And I'm here to share that self-care is possible even in chaos. I do what I do every single day because of my self-care practices. And as you can already tell, I live and breathe self-care. It is so important to me, and spreading the message of why self-care is important for all is vital for me, and a message that I want to share. And so really, prioritizing my self-care helps me do what I do in my life, and it helps me stay present, and it helps me enjoy my life more. And when we don't take care of ourselves, how do we feel? We might feel tired, depleted, burnt out, not inspired. I think many folks can relate to that. I know I surely can when I'm not practicing the variety of self-care practices I do. So today, you'll learn the following things. We'll talk through the following items here: my self-care story, why I'm interested in self-care. We'll talk about the definition of self-care, and then where to begin. So where should we start? We'll also talk about 5 self-care practices and how to apply them to your life. And some of them you probably already are doing. And also I'll provide some self-care resources for more learning. Sound good? Okay, so my self-care story starts with my horoscope. I took my first yoga class at a YMCA on September 3rd, 2008, and I wanted to feel better and to learn how to manage my stress. I had just started my first job out of college, and I was sitting in traffic for about 3 hours every day, working a 9-hour day. So when you do the math, that's a lot of time working and a lot of time in a car. And I know a lot of folks can relate to that because that's the day-to-day for many people, is a long work day. And, some folks are doing the commute as well, a long commute. So before I started, my first job out of college, didn't realize, that I would have all this stress, right? I was feeling this stress like physically, emotionally, and beyond. And I knew I needed some way to manage what I was feeling. And what happened was I ended up just going to a local class at a YMCA. And the night that I went to my first class, before the class ended, before my first yoga class ended, I came out of the last pose knowing I would one day teach yoga. I knew it. It was alignment with my highest self. I just really knew I would teach yoga. And so that same exact night, literally within an hour of taking that class, I went home and this is the horoscope that I saw. And so it's so interesting because it referenced yoga and it talked about prana, which is life force. And then I learned about what that really meant. And so I wanted to share this story because really it resonates with me so much, and where I think the rest of my journey where the rest of my journey was going to take me. And up until this point, before taking that first yoga class, I was an overachiever. I was overwhelmed and I really overworked myself, which I know a lot of people do. I had overcome an undiagnosed eating disorder at 19 years old. And my life as a straight A student with a perfectionist mindset was spilling over into my adult life with this first full-time job that I held. And so around that same time, I was also diagnosed with hypothyroidism, which is an underactive thyroid when your body does not create enough thyroid hormone. And so before I was diagnosed, my symptoms were pretty severe with hypothyroidism. And this was before I knew anything about it. No matter how much I slept, I was tired all the time. I was really cold, even on summer days. And I couldn't concentrate or focus. And so I remember thinking in my early 20s, what is happening? Why am I feeling like this? This was not how I wanted to live or feel, which is why I decided to take action. And so I knew that, what had happened between then and all those symptoms I was experiencing, how I was feeling, and now was a big leap toward loving myself more. And so, like many of us do, I grew up thinking that I had to fit a certain mold to be accepted and loved. But what I didn't realize at the time was that there was no mold to fill. The only thing that required filling was my own cup of self-acceptance and self-love. And this led to embracing and knowing who I truly am and what I am here on this earth to do. And so self-care was my answer then. And it's what I turn to now as a busy working yogi mom. And with more self-care in my life, I have become my own cheerleader, my own coach, mentor, and trusted best friend. And in my book, 108 Yoga and Self-Care Practices for Busy Mamas, there's a line in the book that says, something had to give, so I gave to myself. I took charge of my self-care, and so can you. And so I spent time really thoroughly researching self-care practices, from optimal nutrition to how often to exercise. And there's a lot of amazing information out there about this. But I came across Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is yoga's sister science and one of the world's oldest medical traditions, which is a beautiful practice that helps you live in alignment with nature, both your inner nature and the outer nature that we can all enjoy. And so Ayurveda is a practice that evolves with you during every season of the year and of your life. So this is because we're always changing. So what we needed yesterday might not be what we need today, and it might not be what we need tomorrow. And this practice requires a lot of awareness on our part to really notice, listen, and then respond to the information that we're receiving. I draw a lot of my self-care practices just from my own daily Ayurvedic practices. And so I have a question for you. What is self-care? So we have options A, B, C, D here, and I'll read through them. And I just want to know your thoughts. And so after I read them, if you could just put your thoughts in the chat about what letter you think self-care is. So we're talking about the definition of self-care. So A, brushing your teeth and taking a shower. B, anything you do to nurture and nourish your whole self, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and beyond. C, a lifelong practice. Or D, all of the above. So if you want to just take a moment here and just type in your answer in the chat. Okay. Excellent. So you already know. So thank you. Thank you for participating. You already know it is. You're right. It is all of the above. So folks may do different things for self-care. It could be all of these things. It could be two of these things. And that's what we'll talk about today, because self-care practices are so individualized and they're customized to meet our own unique needs. You might not be interested in one self-care practice, but there might be another one that fills up your cup so much, and we'll talk about that. Even though some of our foundational self-care practices are the same, like our need for quality sleep and movement and quality food, no two people will have the same self-care routine. And so when I talk about self-care, I often talk about self-care in terms of a bucket. And so just for a moment here, if you will visualize a bucket in your favorite color or pattern, and then imagine yourself practicing your favorite self-care practice. So that could be a walk around your neighborhood, or it could be meditation or painting or another practice. And so imagine that every time you practice this self-care, you're adding a drop to your bucket. Okay, so you're visualizing this bucket, and every time you practice self-care, you add a drop into the bucket. And eventually your self-care bucket will fill up with so many drops, and what I call drops of self-care, that it starts to overflow. So these drops start to overflow from the bucket. And because you filled up your bucket first, it'll feel more natural, more seamless, more effortless to give to others, because you're already giving from that full place, right? You've already filled up your cup for that day, that week, whatever it is. And now it's so much easier to give to family members, to friends, and beyond. And so when we take care of ourselves, it really shows in how we treat ourselves and others. And so there's this quote from Buddha that says, "A jug fills drop by drop." And I often like to reference this quote when I talk about the self-care bucket, because we can apply this to how we think about self-care. So every single drop of self-care counts. And so now that you know a little bit about me and why self-care has changed my life, I want to hear a little bit from you. So I have some questions for you, and these are interesting because, you know, people are coming to these from so many different backgrounds, you know, and what, you know, kind of why you're busy, and you know, the reasons for your busyness. But I just want to hear from you. So if you don't mind typing in the chat, we'll do one question at a time. The first one is, what makes you busy? So what is the one thing, first thing that comes to mind that makes you busy? And you might be like, oh, I have a whole list, but just one thing that makes you busy. Just take a moment here. And then, so any first thought that comes to mind of what makes you busy. And if you're, yes, so work, home life balance, absolutely. That is a very common one. And I think we'll see is that the thread here is college, schoolwork. Yep. So a lot of this is, there's a lot going on in our personal lives, save work, family. Thank you so much for sharing. I think we can all relate to that. These are such relatable things that so many of us are working with on a daily basis: work, home life, college, school, family. Absolutely. And so, just a thought here, this next question: what is your busiest time of day? So is it the morning? Is it the afternoon? Is it another time? So if you can just add that to the chat as well. And I know some people would be like, I'm busy all day long, but there's likely a slice of your day that is most busy. Yeah, around dinner time, that can, because you're like trying to cook dinner, get something on the table, eat it in a reasonable amount of time so that you can do your evening activities. Morning rush always comes up. Yes. Yes. It depends on the day. That's another one too. Absolutely. Yeah, right. Because if your schedule is different every single day, you're not going to be busy at the same time every single day. But, for folks who work, Monday through Friday type of schedule will have a different schedule than someone who works maybe every other day or on weekends. So absolutely. So thank you. Thank you for participating in that. There's some more questions though. So of course, raise your hand if you're stressed. I think that, most of us would be raising our hands at least a little bit here, but I'm interested in you sharing a little bit about too, what is stressing you out? So is there anything that is stressing you out? And it could be all the reasons that make you busy too. Yeah, so anything that stresses you out, and we could say that it is the things that make us busy. That could totally be your answer. Okay. Life changes, transitions, finances. Yeah, I think we can all relate to all of the answers that you're providing. These are so relatable. Absolutely. And then what do you notice about yourself when you're stressed? Just one thing. Name one thing you notice about yourself when you're stressed. For example, I notice that when I'm stressed, I hold all the stress in my shoulders, and I have to remind myself to roll my shoulders up, back, and down. And then that allows a fuller breath to come through, right? So I notice my posture gets different when I'm stressed because I'm holding it higher up in my body. Okay, so overeat, can't sleep. And we'll talk about sleep a little later. So can't sleep. Another answer, can't sleep, lack of focus. All right. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think you'll see that some of the practices that we'll talk about today will address some of this. So I'm excited to share all that with you. So thank you for sharing. And then, of course, a couple more questions. Raise your hand if you practice self-care. I think probably most of us will raise our hand because likely you're already doing some of these self-care practices. But I want to know, this is one of the main questions I ask other people is, what is your favorite way to practice self-care? So again, it could be a walk in outdoors, right? A walk around your block, your neighborhood, a park. It could be, meditating, really anything, your favorite way to practice self-care to really help mitigate some of the stress, some of the busyness that you experience. Yes. Spending time outside, boot camp. Yeah. Yeah. Walk in the woods. A lot of outdoor, fresh air activities. So I'm seeing a lot of exercise and just being outside in nature. Reading, walking, getting a massage. Absolutely. All self-care practices. And I'm so happy to hear that you're already doing this. This is great. And so last question here I have for you. What is blocking you from more self-care? So, you already like doing, these variety of things, walking outside, spending time outside, etc. What is blocking you from self-care and perhaps scheduling 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is in a day to do what you want to do? I know for a lot of folks too, it's like the time just gets away, right? It's not in my calendar and the time just slips away. Yeah, so time and schedule constraints. Absolutely. And I know folks who will put in their walk outside or their self-care practice, their exercise in their calendar, just like they would an appointment or a meeting. And that helps some people. But again, you have to see what's gonna help you. So if you try that for a couple weeks and you're like, okay, I'm getting into the rhythm of this. This is becoming a habit now. It's in my calendar and you're dedicating the time. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. You know, a lot of folks too will say, well, so I know all these things, right? I know I want to practice these things, but how do I do it more? Where do I start? And so you might be wondering the same thing too. And there's a quote from John Cage that I reference in my first book that says, begin anywhere. Really, truly begin anywhere. I know sometimes it's so overwhelming. It's like, where do I start? Is there a perfect place to start? Please, you know, you're trying to look for inspiration or, you know, but you already know, right? It's begin anywhere. It's not too late to start practicing more self-care. Today's the day, and you're here, right? You already showed up here. So it's normal to feel overwhelmed. It really, truly is. But taking it drop by drop, step by step makes it so much more doable and less intimidating. And so it becomes just this lifelong practice, like we talked about, where yes, it changes with the seasons because you might not be running outside if it's really cold, but you might be adapting your self-care practice indoors to do something different. So yeah, I really want to share with you that really begin anywhere. You can really truly start anywhere and at any time. And so I want to turn our talk to statistics. And there's some statistics from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention that I want to share. And only 1 in 4 adults in the US get the recommended amount of physical activity. And so only 1 in 10 adults in the US are getting enough fruits and vegetables. All right. And then there's also a statistic that I'd like to share about sleep. 1 in 3 adults in the US are not getting enough sleep. And so I know this isn't surprising, right, to a lot of us because it's like, okay, this is there's a lot of recommendations, but I know that when we talk about the recommendations rather, that we can really truly see, okay, what are we aiming for then? If we're not getting the 7+ hours of sleep, for what are we aiming for? And so some recommendations to share from those statistics is, one is from the American Heart Association, which recommends 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity aerobic activity every week. So typically it's however you want to break it up, right? But usually it's across the span of a week to do those 150 minutes moderate intensity exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity aerobic exercise, because the idea is we're in this rhythm, we're in this routine, and we're not saving 1 day a week to do all of this, right? And so the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention also recommend 2 to 3 cups of veggies and 1.5 to 2 cups of fruit every day. And so when you look at, what the statistics are versus what the recommendations are, right, it's kind of like, okay, well, something's not aligned. And then the American Academy of Sleep Medicine and Sleep Research Society recommend more than 7 hours of sleep per night. And so I know a lot of you likely have heard the 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. And that's definitely something that is advocated for. And so what do these statistics and recommendations show? To me, it shows that there's room for improvement for self-care in our lives in every way, right? Because we talked about the exercise, we talked about the veggies and fruits, we talked about the getting enough sleep. And so I'm here because I want to help change these statistics for our current selves, for our future selves and for the next generation. And so next, we're going to dive into 5 self-care practices and how to apply them to your life. And before we cover these, though, I want to mention that self-care can be inexpensive. It does not have to be, this large expense. In fact, some of the most needed self-care practices, like getting quality sleep, which we'll talk about, doesn't cost anything. And so let's dive right into the quality sleep. And so self-care practice number 1 is sleep. You know you need it. So why is it so hard for so many of us to get? Well, there can be a variety of answers to that, right? But today, I want to address that sleep is something we need every day, which we already know, right? We need it for total mind, body well-being. The importance of our need for sleep is sometimes underrated. In fact, I think a lot of times it's seen as a badge of honor when people skip on sleep in favor of staying up late to be more productive. I know a lot of folks who do this, right? A lot of folks are staying up way past what they would call their typical bedtime, especially over the last year plus. But what I always look at is how can we get better sleep? There are some things we could do to help us get through the night and feel more rejuvenated when we wake up. And so we know this recommendation aiming to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. But there's also this idea of creating a nourishing bedtime routine. And when I say nourishing bedtime routine, it's really anything that's going to help you unwind from the day, right? From that overstimulation from reading tons of emails or from any of the electronic devices. And this may look different for everybody, just like your overall self-care practice. So a routine for one person may be to read a chapter of a book every single night. And that's kind of their signal to start to wind down. Some folks might journal every single night. I know I do. I journal every single day, and you'll hear more about that later. But that might be built into your routine. So I encourage you to start exploring just what a nourishing bedtime routine would look like to you, and how would it be nourishing? And could you look forward to something like that? I know I absolutely look forward to my routine just because, I've tweaked it over the years, and I have a certain one that I do now, but I look forward to it. And so, recommendations also are to keep a sleep schedule even on the weekends, which is really, really hard to do, right? It's like, is this practical? But I know people who do it. And what I have seen is that it becomes easier the more you practice it. So, if you're waking up at a specific time every weekday, waking up at that same specific time on the weekends, and then same thing with going to bed. So you create this pattern, this built-in pattern. And so also minimizing screen time 1 to 2 hours before bed. And this is really because you've likely all heard of the blue light and the stimulation that it provides. And it's really hard to unwind when you're reading your emails, checking social media, watching a TV program, any of that right before you go to bed. So I encourage you, when you build your bedtime routine, to not include a screen in it. Of course, if it's urgent or if it's something like that, of course. But if it's something that can wait until the morning or the next day, I encourage you to do that. And so that's why the next practice here is to set your phone to airplane mode if you can, and turn off the sound. Better yet, keep your phone in another room. I know people who do that. They don't use their phone, their smartphone as an alarm, and they wake up naturally with the sun or before it. So it's like, who could imagine, right? But they're really in alignment with nature and waking up with the sun. And that's pretty incredible. I know a lot of us still need an alarm on our cell phone or on another alarm clock to wake up. But that's an idea here, is to put your phone on airplane mode, mute, etc. And just so it's not a distraction to you, right? You want to just make sure that your bedtime routine is a nourishing one. And so I have my sleep mask here, and yes, this is my sleep mask that I wear every night, because when we think about good quality sleep, we really have to look back at our ancestors and, sleeping in a cool, dark cave. And so just, scanning where you sleep and just making sure there's no light coming through a window, and our alarm clock, your phone. And that's why I do wear this sleep mask, even if it's a really bright moon out, if it's full moon, you can sometimes see the moon streaming through your curtains, your drapes. Wearing a sleep mask, I do this every single night. I bring the sleep mask with me wherever I go. And, if I'm sleeping overnight somewhere, and it really, really helps block out that light. And you can also use blackout curtains. I know some people do use the blackout curtains because then it's like no light is getting in during the evening. Another thought is to block out noise with earplugs. I know that I use at least one earplug every single night, and it really helps me because if I put the other one in, if I'm sleeping on my side, then it's not as comfortable. So for me, I just use the one. I know people who use a white noise machine, and I use a fan which doubles as a white noise machine and then also coolness, because you want your optimal sleeping temperature to be around 65 degrees. So maybe that's opening a window for you, turning on a fan, and just making sure you're creating this optimal environment so you can get the best rest that you can possibly get tonight. And then one other thought here with sleep is eating a light dinner between the hours of 5 and 7. And so I know for a lot of people, the dinner time is usually the biggest meal, instead, because it's like, okay, if it's the end of the day, I'm going to eat, like relax, then go to bed. It's actually really the noon time or the lunch time, which should be the largest meal, because then your body has enough time to digest that food. And then it's not working on digestion while you are sleeping. It's really just truly working on rejuvenating the body and just providing this nourishing, deep sleep. So self-care practice number 1, sleep. And it's definitely something that for the folks who do it really well, I'm always so inspired by them, because it's not easy to do, especially in this modern world. So next practice, self-care practice number 2, is journaling. And so the picture here on this slide it's a photo of a few journals I got from the Dollar Tree. And I have written in numerous journals over the years, and journaling is one of my absolute favorite self-care practices. And so I once got a question: who am I writing to in these journals? And I responded that, well, I'm writing to myself, I'm writing to my soul. And I really truly feel that, because when I'm writing, it's, this connection with myself that I perhaps don't have that opportunity, at other points throughout my day. And so this is how truly how much I enjoy journaling. But I once kept 4 journals at a time, each one with a different purpose. I had a journal for motherhood, a weekly journal that had a writing prompt. I had a free form journal, and I had so many journals in this one space. And it was just enjoyable for me. I like to do it. So journaling, I have found, is cathartic. It helps organize thoughts, and it helps me remember what I wrote. So instead of typing, because I do a lot of typing, but writing is different. When I write it, I can remember it more. And so, of course, there are many styles of journaling. There's gratitude journaling, there's reflection writing, free form, and writing prompts, and so many more styles. Half of my practices in my book, 108 Yoga and Self-Care Practices for Busy Mamas, are journaling prompts. And so the other thing about journaling is, if you're going to start journaling today, let's say today is the day that you're like, yep, I'm starting to journal. I recommend picking a time to do it every day. I do it every day before bed. That's part of my bedtime routine. And that's something I look forward to, because I know that if I'm writing it down on paper, that worry, that stress, whatever it is, whatever I'm trying to work out in my mind that I haven't been able to articulate in any other way that day or that week, I can put it on paper, and I'm good, right? I'm good when I write it down on the paper. So again, pick a time to do it. If it's morning, if you want to go outside in your backyard, the front, you're watching the sunrise, journal, great. Whatever is going to make it a habit for you is what I would recommend. And so my writing prompt that I want to provide to you today is, how do you stay calm in chaos? So really, truly, how do you stay calm in chaos? And it perhaps is some of the answers that you provided earlier, right? And how you kind of mitigate stress and, those walks outside and being in nature. That may be how do you stay calm in chaos. But I encourage you to write about it. I encourage you to, even if you don't have a journal or a notebook, I just encourage you to write a sentence, write a paragraph, and see what comes of it. And so the next self-care practice we'll talk about is one of the words rather of this title of the talk today, and it's yoga. So self-care practice number 3, yoga. And when people think about yoga, they often think about movement. While certainly this is part of it, can be part of it, there is more to yoga than the poses and what many of us see. And yoga is more of a lifestyle and a path to mind, body, spirit connection. A 2016 Yoga in America study by Yoga Journal and Yoga Alliance found that more than 36 million people in the US practice yoga. Now, of course, those numbers were well before the pandemic, but those are just to give you some numbers of how many people were practicing, in 2016. And I know that anytime I step on a yoga mat, someone somewhere else around the world is stepping on their mat too. And to me, that is connection with other people, even without being in the same room with them. And people come to yoga for a variety of reasons. They come to reduce stress, anxiety, depression. They come to improve their posture, for balance, stability. They also come to feel better. I know that when I started my yoga journey, that very first yoga class, I wanted to feel better. I wanted to manage my stress. And of course, there's so many other reasons that people come to yoga. And today we're going to talk about the breath, the movement, and meditation. And so breath is our greatest source of energy and way to stay calm and connected to the present moment. So if you ever notice yourself when you're stressed or when you're just feeling just stressed, just notice your breath. That awareness can be everything to say, okay, my breath is coming from my chest instead of my belly. What can I do? I can roll my shoulders up, back, and down, right? And so we'll talk about that. And movement, of course, that's the asana, the physical form of yoga. Those are the poses. And today I'll demonstrate a sampling of these practices, including the poses. We'll talk about a breathing exercise, simple seated stretches, and a meditation. And know that this is a demonstration. As always, check with your doctor before beginning any new exercise or wellness routine. Meditation, when we do that practice today, know that there are many types of meditations. There's visualization, there's mantra. We'll be practicing a mantra meditation. So let's go ahead and begin with our breath. Allow your spine to be tall and long in your seat. And root your feet into the ground. So starting with stability here through the feet. Just gently align your knees over your ankles. If you need to, roll your shoulders up, back, and down. And for a few moments here, close your eyes. Or if you prefer, keep them open with a soft gaze in front of you. Begin to notice your body and scan it, beginning with the feet to the crown of your head. Become aware of your feet planted on the ground, your legs, your posture. Become aware of where your head is in space, your shoulders, your arms, your hands. And then bring awareness to your nose. Notice the sensation of breath going in and out. As soon as a thought comes in, acknowledge this thought and then let it go, not attaching to it. And we'll take 3 clearing community breaths together. On an inhale, through your nose, full easy breath in. Through your nose, exhale out, full easy breath out. Again, inhale through your nose, full breath in. Exhale out through your nostrils, sigh it out. One more time, inhale through your nose. Open mouth, or rather close your mouth, nostrils here, breath comes out through your nose. And come back to your natural breath. And then place one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart. Notice the natural rise and fall of your belly and your heart with your breath. Every time you inhale, notice the belly and then the heart rise. And then every time you exhale, notice first your heart and then your belly sink inward towards your spine. And from here, we'll add a count of 4 on each inhale and exhale. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale out for 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll keep going here. Just notice the rise and the fall of each inhale with the belly and the heart. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale out 4, 3, 2, 1. One more time. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. And come back to your natural breath. Release your hands just comfortably down towards your legs. Just connecting to this moment. The only moment we truly have is the present moment. Oftentimes we're thinking about the past or a future event, something that hasn't occurred, but life really is truly in the present moment, right here, right now, and our breath helps us connect to that. And then go ahead and just gently open your eyes. And I'll demonstrate some seated stretches that I do when I just need a few minutes for a break throughout the day. I'm often, as I mentioned, on a computer typing a lot. And so the tendency is for the shoulders to want to roll forward. But my reminder is always take your shoulders up, back, and down. So what I like to do for just a quick movement break is just turn my head side to side. And sometimes I do this with my breath. So every time I inhale, I go to one side. And every time I exhale, I turn my head to the other. And this could be as slow and mindful as I'd like to some days. And then from here, I'll typically bring my head back to center and then turn my chin down toward my heart and look up toward the sky. And I repeat, same thing at my own pace. I go chin to chest. With my shoulders relaxed, I look up. And I keep drawing my shoulders away from my ears. I keep softening and melting them down. And then what I'll typically do is coming back with my head over my heart, I'll begin shoulder shrugs. And sometimes I'll isolate each shoulder, so I'm only doing one at a time, and then I'll sometimes do both. So I'll inhale, take my shoulder up to my ear, and then with the breath, I open mouth, exhale. Inhale, open mouth, exhale. Inhale, open mouth, exhale. And then I'll do the other side. Inhale, open mouth, exhale. Inhale, open mouth, exhale. Inhale, open mouth, exhale. And then I do both shoulders. So I'll do both shoulders at the same time, but I'll add a roll either forward or back. So inhale, shoulders up, exhale, back, and then down. Again, I inhale, shoulders up, and then exhale, take them back and down. And I'll usually do it in sets of threes. Inhale, shoulders go up, exhale, take them back and drop them down. And I'll reverse it. Inhale, shoulders go up, exhale, take them forward and down. Inhale, shoulders roll up, exhale, take them forward and down. And inhale, shoulders roll up, exhale, take them forward and down. And then a lot of times too, if there's a lot of typing and using a mouse or even texting these days, right? You can feel all that going on in the wrists. What I'll do is some simple wrist rolls. So I'll just gentle fist with my hands and I'll go one direction with the wrists. And these can go slow, medium paced, and then the other direction, right? And sometimes the slower I go, I can really truly feel it more. And then once I do the wrist rolls, I'll open the hands like starburst, so like really, really large, and then I'll close them up like this. Inhale, I'll open the hands up like starburst, and close them up. Open the hands, and then close them up. Another thing I'll do for my wrists is a wrist stretch. And so what I'll do for this one is I'll extend one arm out long, so making a stop sign with my right hand, and I'll take the fingers of the other hand and push the fingers of the left hand into the right fingers. And I'll just draw the wrist back toward me. You start to get the stretch in the front of the wrist. And then from here, I'll move the fingers downward instead. And then left finger, same thing, go onto the right fingers and just some gentle pressure so you can feel the stretch in the front of the wrists. And relaxing the shoulders the entire time. And then release. And then I'll do that same thing on the opposite side. So I'll extend my left arm forward, making a stop sign with the left hand. Right fingers go onto the left hand and really just gently guiding the fingers toward the heart. And breathing, of course, throughout this whole stretch. And then releasing the fingers downward this time, so spinning them downward. And then same thing, pushing the hand, the opposite hand, into the fingers so I can feel that stretch, seeing if I can get the thumb in there too, and if not, no worries. Really a full big breath, even sometimes with the eyes closed. And then releasing it, just gently, maybe some more wrist rolls, kind of shaking that out. And so usually that's enough to reset me for, the next time that I am going to do a mini movement break. And so those simple stretches are yoga, right? You don't have to necessarily get into a downward facing dog or do a plank for it to be yoga. It can be these micro movements with these micro breaks. So from here, we'll move into our meditation. And I meditate every morning, but you can practice meditation, same thing like journaling or any of these other self-care practices. You can really do them any time of day. That will make it a habit. So if meditation is going to be a 1-minute habit in the morning, amazing. Because if you add all of those 1 minute, the 1 minute up every single day, you have a lot of meditation minutes under the whole year. When you dedicate at least 1 minute a day. So it can be really powerful that way. So meditation really helps us move out of that stressful mode, and it helps us bring more calm, balance to an active mind. It helps us bring calm to the chaos. And I can say this truly because I practice meditation every single day. It has been a tool, a foundational tool for me during the pandemic. And I'm so grateful for this practice, for all these self-care practices, really, but meditation in particular. And so during meditation, it is natural for your thoughts to come up as, when we did the breathing demonstration, you may have noticed, a thought came up or maybe several thoughts came up. That is typical. That is many people's experience. When that happens, acknowledge these thoughts and then just let them go. Imagine that they're a cloud in the sky and they're just moving on their way. They're going to move out of that field of vision to create this clear path for you. And so, as I mentioned, today we'll practice a mantra meditation where we'll synchronize our breath with the mantra, I am here now. It'll really get us into the present moment. So go ahead and close your eyes and keep them open with the soft gaze in front of you. Become aware of your posture, your head in space, again, your shoulders, your hands. Reconnect with your breath, drawing that awareness back to your nose. Watch your breath go in and out. And notice the quality and the texture of your breath. Does it feel the same as before? Has it changed? Now, every time you inhale, think of the words, I am. And every time you exhale, think of the words, here now. Inhale, I am. Exhale, here now. Synchronizing each part of the sentence with your inhale and exhale. I am here now. Just focusing on the mantra and your breath and keeping it that simple. I am here now. And then eventually, silently repeating this one more time, I am here now. And let the mantra start to fade as you place your focus back on your breath. Full breath in, full breath out. And then gently open your eyes. Welcome back. How do you feel? And so from yoga, meditation, and breath work, we will move into self-care practice number 4. And that's simply an activity that brings you joy. I truly encourage you to do something that lights you up every day. And you likely already know what this is. What do you wake up excited to do? When are you your happiest? And who are you with when you are your happiest? And so these questions may give you insight into that activity that brings you joy that you can't wait to wake up for. So although this seems, it is simple, right? But it's making sure that we're really, truly building a life that includes this, building a self-care routine that includes something that brings us joy every day because we deserve it. So from self-care practice 4, we move into self-care practice number 5, asking for help. This involves other people, right? It's like, what? Our self-care can involve other people? Absolutely. When it comes to asking for help, a lot of folks think that they need to do it all and they need to do it all by themselves. It's not so. You don't need to do it all. Do what you can, and you absolutely don't need to do it alone. Asking for help and saying what you need is the essence of standing up for your self-care, which is the name of my blog and my YouTube channel. Many of us are taking on a lot, and to add more and more to our plates doesn't always serve us. We all need to feel supported. We need each other, and there's a community of people out there who can help. I encourage you to think about something you need help with and identify who can help you. And so it could be a simple ask, but perhaps you've not thought to ask or you're just not sure of it. But people I have found are so willing to help, especially now. And so we covered our 5 self-care practices. And where do you go from here, right? We already talked about begin anywhere, but what's the next step? we talked about, sleeping and journaling and practicing yoga and regularly doing your favorite activity, asking for help. But I encourage you to start with a small self-care practice that's going to be realistic, digestible, and practical for you. Something you can easily do, such as writing one sentence in a journal every day or going outside for 1 minute every day, especially if you've been indoors a lot, and then build from there. Maybe it's 2 sentences in your journal the next week. Maybe it's 2 minutes outdoors or 2 minutes of meditation that following week. And so there's a quote from Mahatma Gandhi that says, "There is more to life than increasing its speed. A small change truly can make a big difference." And so some self-care resources I'd like to share with you to help you get started on your next step is to explore some of my practices that I have. I have, as I mentioned, the 2 self-care books, 108 Yoga and Self-Care Practices for Busy Mamas, and How to Stay Calm in Chaos, an Everyday Self-Care Guide. Those are all available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the MSI Press website, and other online retailers. But I also teach in-person and virtual yoga classes, and they're held during the evenings when busy people can actually attend class right after a long day. My classes are at 7 p.m. again, Mondays and Wednesday evenings. And I also teach pop-up classes, just in different communities. And so I have all of this information on my website, juliegtheyogi.com. And I also included in my monthly Nourish Note newsletter, where I include all my events and all this other information. So you can get the latest information if you subscribe to my newsletter. My books have received awards, and I received the Living Now Book Awards for 108 Yoga and Self-Care Practices for Busy Mamas, bronze medal in exercise, fitness, and yoga, and was recognized as a book for better living. Also, the same book received a Book Excellence Awards finalist recognition in mind and spirit. And then my newest book, again, written and published during the pandemic, received the COPS Featherling International Book Awards, an honorable mention in mind, body, and spirit. And so I mentioned my newsletter, Nourish Note. You can truly sign up for this, and it's one issue, comes out every single month. And I truly, I want to provide this value of self-care resources and things out there that can truly help you build a self-care routine and just give you some inspiration, some ideas. This is a screenshot of my website. So I add self-care content every single week at juliegtheyogi.com. Again, all the information that I'm mentioning to you about the resources can be found on this website, Stand Up for Your Self-Care, juliegtheyogi.com. And I also have a YouTube channel, as I mentioned, Stand Up for Your Self-Care. A new self-care video is added every month. And so that's certainly another resource. And you can connect with me by emailing, by visiting my website, juliegtheyogi.com, and on Instagram and Facebook at Julie G the Yogi. I want to hear how your self-care practices are going. And so I want to end with a mantra. And this mantra is, I am worthy. I am worthy of the 10 minutes in nature, the 30-minute workout, a day of self-care, a weekend of rest. I'm worthy of however long it takes to take care of me. I am worthy. You all are worthy of self-care and the same exact things. And so thank you so much for being here with me. It is truly, truly my honor, my passion, and my privilege to be here with each of you. The light in me honors and sees the light within each of you. And from my heart to each and every one of your hearts, namaste. Thank you so very much, everyone. I really, truly enjoyed sharing this information with you, and I so appreciate your participation. Even in this virtual space, it's truly, I'm just so grateful for it. So thank you. Thank you so much. And if there are any questions, I'm certainly here to answer them. So does anyone have any questions? Okay. Yeah, so I see a comment here in the chat. So I'm going to go back to that slide. So yeah, you can absolutely contact me. My website, juliegtheyogi.com, Instagram, juliegtheyogi, and my email. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so if there are no other questions, feel free to reach out if there's something else you'd like to connect with me on, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Julie, thank you so much. That was really so inspiring. I think, we started out talking about how busy we all are and how frenetic our lives are. And I think you really showed us a practical way to sort of break it down into easily manageable chunks there. I'm inspired to go out and try all of this. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm so excited to hear that. Thank you.
So, all right. So if there are no other questions, we'll say goodnight. But thank you again, Julie. And I'll shoot you an email right after this, and we'll keep in touch. Okay. Well, hopefully we'll be seeing Julie again at the Roselle Library. So
great. Thank you. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
okay. Good night, everyone.
Bye.